All right, welcome to the Explainer. Today we're jumping into one of the most fascinating and, let's be honest, most debated tools in all of technical analysis, the Elliott wave theory. We're going to break down what it is, how it works, and what it all means. So let's start with a really basic question. When you look at a stock chart, what do you see? Is it just chaos, a totally random, unpredictable series of ups and downs? Or is there maybe some kind of hidden order, a rhythm underneath all that noise? That is the exact puzzle the Elliott wave theory claims to have solved. And the story begins way back in the 1930s with this man, Ralph Nelson Elliott. After he retired, he got really obsessed with studying 75 years of stock market data. And he wasn't just looking for random price movements. He was searching for repeating patterns. And he became convinced he found one, a hidden structure he called the wave principle. So what was this big idea? Well, Elliott proposed that the market's seemingly chaotic behavior wasn't random at all. He believed it was actually driven by these natural, repetitive cycles in human psychology, the swings between optimism and pessimism, and that these cycles create very specific, identifiable patterns on the charts. To explain it, Elliott used this really great analogy. He talked about the ebbs and flows of the market, kind of like the tides of an ocean. And that's exactly where the name wave principle comes from. He wasn't just charting prices, he believed he was charting the very rhythm of mass human emotion. Okay, so what does this rhythm actually look like? At the very heart of this entire theory is one surprisingly simple repeating pattern. And here it is. This is the core idea in one picture. According to Elliott, a full complete market cycle is made up of 8 waves. You get 5 waves that move in the direction of the main trend. Let's say we're in a bull market, so that's 5 waves up. And then you get 3 waves that correct against that trend. So 3 waves down, 5 up, 3 down. That's the basic pulse of the market. Now, these 2 types of waves have specific names. The waves that push things forward, the ones that go with the main trend, that's waves 1, 3, and 5. Those are called impulse waves. The waves that pull back, the ones that go against the trend, that's waves 2, 4, and then the ABC waves, those are called corrective waves. Being able to tell them apart is everything. Okay, now here is where things get really wild and a little bit mind-bending. That 5-3 pattern, it doesn't just happen on a daily chart. It happens everywhere, on every single time frame.
Just look at this. This shows you the fractal nature of the whole idea. See that big impulse wave labeled with a number 1? Well, if you zoom in, you'll see it's actually made up of its own little 5-wave pattern. And that corrective wave labeled number 2? Yep, it's made of a smaller 3-wave pattern. This same structure repeats itself over and over and over again, whether you're looking at a 1-minute chart or a 100-year chart. It's waves within waves forever.
But it gets even cooler. Elliott realized that this endless pattern wasn't just some coincidence. As you start counting up the total number of waves at each level of this fractal, a very famous, very specific mathematical sequence starts to pop up. It turns out the wave counts line up perfectly with the Fibonacci sequence, where you add the last 2 numbers to get the next one. This is a sequence that appears all over the place in nature, in shells, in flowers, in galaxies. Elliott believed this mathematical connection was proof that his theory was tapping into some fundamental law of the universe. All right, now that we've got the big 5-3 picture, let's zoom in a little on that second part, the corrective waves. These pullbacks can be really, really tricky to figure out in real time, but the theory gives us a kind of field guide, a roadmap of the common patterns to watch out for. And here is probably the most important rule you need to remember. Impulse waves, the ones going with the trend, they break down into 5 smaller subwaves. Corrective waves, on the other hand, almost always break down into 3. In fact, according to the original theory, a correction can never happen in 5 waves. That is a critical distinction. So the first and most common type of correction is called the zigzag. This is a sharp, really aggressive move against the main trend. You can think of it as the market taking a deep, sharp breath in the opposite direction. It's a very clear rejection of the current trend before that trend gets going again. Next up, we have the flat correction. Now, unlike that sharp zigzag, this one is much more sideways, and it tells a totally different story. A flat basically suggests that the main trend is so strong, the market can't even pull back very much. It's just kind of pausing, moving sideways to catch its breath before the next big push. And finally, there's the triangle. This is where you see the price getting squeezed into a tighter and tighter range. It's a picture of perfect indecision, a moment where the buyers and sellers are in a dead heat. All that tension builds up and coils like a spring, and it almost always ends with a powerful breakout in the direction of the main trend. So we've got the wave patterns, and we know they're tied to this Fibonacci sequence, but how does that actually help anyone make a forecast? Well, this is where it gets really practical. This is where Fibonacci ratios come into play. These specific numbers, which all come from the Fibonacci sequence, are absolutely key. Elliott wave analysts believe that the lengths of different waves are often related by these exact ratios. For example, it's super common for a corrective wave to retrace 38.2% or 61.8% of the previous impulse wave. And that 0.618, the golden ratio, that one's considered a really big deal. And here's what that looks like on an actual chart. An analyst can measure a big move up and then apply these Fibonacci ratios to project potential zones where the pullback might stop and the next big move up might start. They're not guarantees, but they become these high probability areas to watch for a market turn. So let's just quickly wrap this all up. At its core, the theory gives us a blueprint. A full cycle is an 8-wave pattern, 5 forward, 3 back. Trends move in 5 waves, corrections move in 3. There are rules, like wave 4 can't overlap wave 1, and the whole thing is held together by the mathematical framework of the Fibonacci sequence. And that brings us to the big final question, doesn't it? The Elliott wave principle paints this incredible picture of the market as this structured, predictable system that's all based on human nature. But is it a real map to what's going to happen next? Or is it just a really elegant way to find patterns after the fact? That's the question that traders and analysts are still fiercely debating to this very day.